Business items, so these are the ones that we just received through email last night.
Yeah, just if I can have a few, I'll go through just the package you got so you know what was in it. And then from that point in time, I think we've basically, I'm not sure if you want to start with one person and go around the table, or how you want to bring up any questions or ideas or whatever. I'll leave that to you. But Councillor Bowden had asked about the fleet, I guess, for lack of better term. So we have this together in terms of what vehicles are in each fleet is the first page, their age, odometer, that type of thing. And then so that's 2 pages, including the fire department vehicles. And then there's a page with public works equipment, so the larger equipment, and the recreation and parks equipment. So the equipment they have, the blowers, kind of years they were purchased, that type of thing. So those are those pages. We had mentioned to you last time in terms of tax revenue budget comparisons. So that document basically shows in, and I'll focus on municipal taxes because it's the only one we have any control over. So in 2016, we collected 2.806 million. 2017, 2.832. Your council's first budget as a group in 2018 was 2.877. And since then, for the most part, in 2019, you lowered taxes. In 2020, you significantly lowered taxes. And in 21, we are up again, but we are still less than what the tax revenue collected in 2018. So I know when people say out on the street, my taxes are going up, you're taxing me more, you're taxing me more. This shows that we haven't been increasing the taxes. In fact, they've gone down since 2018. Certainly individually, some person's taxes may have gone up just because how assessment worked, if their assessment went up when everybody else's was going down, but just wanted to throw that into you. And pretty much if you look at even the school taxes, which we don't have a lot of control over, they've come down. They peaked in 2018, 2019, and then came down. We're using 2020s or 2021 from the school because we don't know what they're going to requisition the province. And then Acadia Foundation has been fairly steady. It actually went down between 16 and 17, and then it was a significant drop again in 18. That was a one-off. They had paid off a debenture, so they lowered the taxes for everyone. Then it went up slightly and gone up slightly. And I don't know, Councillor Sticko, you guys haven't finalized your Acadia Foundation yet? Or have you? Not yet. We'd indicated, they'd indicated that there most likely was going to be an increase in the requisition. So we've built that in 21. But I think your last comment to me was that might not be needed. Happen. So, yeah. And if it isn't, it basically lowers the requisition on the tax notice for Acadia. So we'll find out probably shortly where that's going to be. Next meeting. So that was that document. And then I just for make sure everybody did see Chris's email and Chris's comments, there's a copy here. So I think that's all I have, Deputy Mayor Jensen. So we're here, I guess, primarily to answer any questions council may have, or as we move through the rest of the budget. So
I think it'd probably be easier just to go around the table and have the comments and whatnot. We can just kind of add to the mayor's notes and discuss from there. I don't know who wants to go first. Connie?
Sure. I didn't have much different from what Mayor Warwick had. The only thing I was wondering about with the equipment that Public Works is looking at, is there enough equipment in our community to cover if there's an emergency? if we do not buy that piece of
Backhoe.
equipment?
That's the $64,000 question. There could be, there may not be. It depends whether those people who own those pieces of equipment have jobs and have them out. And quite often, sometimes if you want that, and it's something we can explore, you may have to pay, in some places, they'll pay a premium to a contractor to make sure that if we call, you respond.
Yeah, and it's a concern I have. We've got water break. We need the equipment right away and we have the coverage.
Yeah, so
Equipment to make sure that we could.
the equipment, when we say right away, we have to make sure we're on the same page with right away. So right away could mean 3 or 4 hours. Because that's what happens if we have to bring Brooks in. It's not right away. It's a call to them, get a hold of them, see if they can get a crew together, see if they can get up, and they have the transport. So generally, if we call Brooks, it's a minimum of 3 hours till they're on site. That's probably the best they'll be is on site. So like I said, we don't need it immediately, that it has to be here in an hour, but the longer it is away, the longer it is till you start on the repair, and the longer it is that potentially people are shut off of water. So that's, and we haven't had any discussions with the local people or who may have them here in terms of whether they would have their machine available or enter into some sort of agreement that if we call, they will have that equipment there for us within 4 to 6 hours, whatever that time may be. Because we also, if we have a water break, we have to make first calls. So that takes a few hours at the best of times to get emergency first calls in and get people into mark lines. So
Because right now, we don't have that piece of equipment at our beck and call.
no, we were really fortunate. The town has been really fortunate for, I'm gonna say the term forever, but for a long time. When Grover's did it, they basically would shut down anything they were doing and they would bring their equipment in. If Murray had it out at the power plant, he would haul it in and we would do it. They responded very quickly for us, and it was almost like we had that piece. When we were using Mark Fico's, same thing. If Mark wasn't using his very often on any other work, so, and like I said, if Mark was out of town, he trusted our operator and just said, yeah, go pick it up. You know where the keys are. Go and use it. Tell him, let me know how many hours you used it, and he gave us a rate. We had a rate with Mark for when he operated it, and we had a rate when we operated it. So we've been very fortunate to have a couple of locals respond that way. So, but we have not investigated at this point in time what's here and what type of availability there would be on it. So, if we had somebody local who was, that's obviously the first preference. If we had somebody who could guarantee that they would have equipment available, because there's no guarantee even with Brooks.
Yeah.
They may be out fixing something else, so there's no guarantee with them either. So
So can we comment on that as well at the same time?
sure.
I would agree with that as well. I would like to see perhaps investigating, like putting it out for tender, or however else you can go to the community to see what is available and who might be willing. And maybe it's somebody on Youngstown that is, I would.
Yeah, no, and there
that's
could be.
in the vicinity.
Yeah, there'd be a
Yeah.
little bit of homework to do on that, because you have to figure out like how many times it would be used, if it would be worth it just to buy our own, and then we have that security and availability and.
But depending how long it's being used as well, because then we don't have to worry about insuring it and.
Yeah, the overhead's
and all
gone,
of
yeah.
that stuff,
Yeah.
which I think is valuable too.
The only thing is, do you bring in the expertise to run this? Do you know how to dig, where to dig? Like some of these big high holes have long spikes on their bucket. I mean, you trust these guys that don't know where the water lines and how deep they are and all the rest of it? I mean,
Well, I would
you gotta
trust,
be careful.
I would trust somebody that owns the equipment and is in the business of operating.
Yeah, but
versus
they
somebody
have
that
never dug in town. It's like growers, I mean, you've seen what happened when Brooks come to that water leak in front of Royal Bank last year.
Yeah.
I mean, Brooks come in and just poof, it was fixed. You take somebody that, I'm just saying Grantham or whoever runs a high hope, you would be,
Well, that would have to be part of the research too, is where, how qualified are they?
well,
and-
yeah, I
And
mean,
doing it, and maybe it's a bit of practice on their end, but I think anybody, regardless, who's operating it has to take the measures to make sure they're not gonna make more of a wreck than is already there.
we don't know how big a wreck they could make.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt, it's a different animal
Yeah.
operating in a municipality. And depending where the lines are located, some are easier than others. Some, when you get into the new subdivision, when they're all in the alley, you've got the power line, the gas line, Axia, AGT, or TELUS, and the water and sewer lines all within a 10-foot radius. So it's not just go in and dig, it's you pretty ginger pulling, a few inches at a time type thing to not do any of that. So it is a skill. There's no
Yes.
doubt it's a skill to operate. And I can't comment on our locals, whether they've done a lot of that, had a lot of experience there, but they may have some experience digging in some similar situations. And that would probably be, if we put out some sort of request for proposal or tender, that would probably be one of the things that we would ask them to comment on or provide comment on, was any experience they've had in that regard, so.
And then
I
there's somebody there.
personally,
Sorry.
my opinion would be to purchase one. As a municipality, I think we should have something. I respect the request for proposals and trying to save the money, but you run across the operator. If they're gone on vacation or whatever, we're stuck and we have to call Brooks, it's costly to bring them up each time for what we would spend to haul them up. Each time we could have a piece of equipment of our own, have our own operators.
Yeah, we
I
had
just
to
think it's a responsibility as a municipality to have the equipment to repair when something
Emergency.
happens.
And we have the operators, and they would have to be there, we'd be paying them anyway to be on site. So there
So
wouldn't
they
be
would
that
be
extra.
supervising the whole thing anyways.
That's just my thoughts. I think there's a few areas in the expenditures, in travel and stuff, where that's likely due to COVID going to come
Could be,
down.
yeah.
Because it's pre
Yeah.
2020 levels, so I think ultimately we would have the funds to purchase equipment to respond
Yeah.
in a timely and eventually less costly manner.
That's the-
I talked to, when my buddy was down here couple weeks ago, Kelly Southern, we went to Richard Kroll's and he'd been talking to his son-in-law, and there's one outfit up in Grand Prairie, I believe they had 67 high hose for sale. And he talked to Richard, because Richard wants to upgrade, and he said they come with varying hours on them, they're sitting idle, they gotta get rid of them, and you could pick one up pretty reasonable, you can phone Dean Dreger, he can line one up for a guy. But by the same token, I've had many contractors here over the year. One, for example, would be Brent Bacon Wine, that cried to me lots of times, why in the hell we don't put this out for tender? Why Grover got everything all the time? And I don't know now even if they would do it, because of their attitude toward it.
Well, I think,
Because they feel we never give them a chance in the past, so why should they do it now? And there's not many around, I know Richard Kroll plans on upgrading his, but whether he's interested in doing that, I don't know. Gwen Templer has one sitting there. These guys are good roll operators, but
yeah, and we've called Quinn a couple of times and he
Yeah.
hasn't been able to come, so.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I'm not saying that that's not an option. That certainly is an option. Like I said, as Councillor Jensen said, the positive part of having your own is you're in control. That's the positive part. There may be, the negatives to it is that you have to buy the piece of equipment, you have to insure and operate it, upgrade, repair, maintenance that are going to be continuous costs. There's pros and cons with both. Bringing in a contractor, like bringing in Brooks, is not cheap. It's probably $3,000 just to get them here before they even turn the wheel, basically their mobilization fees. So, they come 10 times in a year, that's $30,000, $40,000 right there in mobilization. And there might be times we still need to use them, but, especially depending on what type of equipment's available and when, certainly dealing in severe winter, their equipment is much better than anything that's around here. And where it would take Mark 6 hours to get to the bottom in the winter, going through the frost, they'll be down there in an hour. And we quite often in the winter will rent their hydrovac truck because it's insulated. So it doesn't have to stop. We bring our hydrovac truck out to dig, freeze up in 20 minutes to half an hour. Then you've got to take it back into the shop and unthaw it and warm it up to go back out for 20. I'm not talking when it's minus 20, minus 30 out. You're doing when they have an insulated one. So I'm not saying that even if we had our own, that we may not need them on occasion, but
Well, if we got a really good deal, if we look at some auctions, we might be able to get
Well,
a couple.
the trouble is there, you gotta remember too, just because you own it, you still can't get it to the site mill most times. We have to have a truck to haul it up there, Or
depends
you
what
gotta
kind.
hire a trucker. You can't just jump in and drive it all over town,
No,
So there's pros and cons too, owning it, purchasing it. I mean, sure, you can probably pick it up cheap, but
yeah, we'd have to look at what would be best. I know Mark's
it's gotta
Mark's
be
is
fully
a track, I
investigated.
think the right word is the track, right? The steel track. So it wasn't ideal for driving around town,
No.
by any means. We could do it, but it's not.
You get hot summer days where the asphalt's really soft, they can chew it up pretty good,
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I
it's
think
not just
regardless,
a matter of buying one.
regardless how we go, Brooks will have a place. They have unique equipment you need sometimes when you need them.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind leaving that money in the budget, but I guess our local expert, Brent, if he can tell us if $70,000 piece of equipment would be better than what Mark had. If it's a buyer's market right now, I suspect it is, maybe you can get a deal. And if he says his experience going in Quinn or for the contractors say, well, I don't know if it's worth it, but I think there's due diligence with both sides of it, won't worry yet.
I think there's some local businesses that are maybe hurting, that may reconsider their attitude from previous years. the fact
Well, and we
that-
can't fix that other than say, hey, here's your
No,
chance.
but
And if they
yeah.
choose no, then, okay.
And it's just hard to say whether it always seems to be the worst days of the year, right, that they get the call to come out. It's like, hey, you want to come out now?
Yeah.
So,
So minus 30s or 40s when water went.
would it be possible maybe by next budget meeting to maybe have contacted a few of the local, just to kind of get a feel for the.
Yeah, we can
and
see,
look
yeah.
At maybe some auctions and equipment pricing.
Yeah.
So we could kind of like narrow, because it kind of seems to be a little bit broad right now.
Yeah.
Maybe we can narrow it down.
Yeah, no, we can do that.
Yeah.
That is, I agree with all of Chris's, Warwick's suggestions on the bottom. And that's all for me.
So I just want to touch base on a couple of Chris's, at least his questions up above. So he had the three questions. So when he says page 18 expenditures, coordinator program development increase in 2021, that is funding from the grant. So that's the AHS grant. So that's not, if you lowered that cost, that $20,000 increase is for the AHS grant. Are we going to complete phase 2 study on Helmer Dam? That's the $64,000 question, I guess. At this point in time, we have nothing in the budget. What the plan would be is we will apply in January for phase 2 of that study and see where we get. If at the end of the day, we get grant funding again to do the next phase, that's great. We'll move forward. If we don't get grant funding, then I think that's a discussion back again with council to say, okay, we didn't get any grant funding. If you want to do a second phase, this is what it will include and this is what it will cost. And we'd have to deal with it at that point in time is how I think is the best way to approach that. And the third one with the walking trails, it's not a recommendation from CSB. It was some requests. I think the biggest request we've had is from the lodge. And Chris's comment, if not, I would recommend splitting 25 and 21 and 25 and 22, which is fine. The only thing I think that Chris was forgetting was the plan was to bring this money. We didn't spend it this year, so we were moving it into reserves to pull it out to do the project. So it's not like we split that up and we saved $25,000 tax generation this year. So I just wanted, those were the, kind of answers to his 3 questions. So, and of course, he's got his suggestions down below, so.
All right. And that was all for you, Connie?
Yeah, that's it.
Councilor Tuphoff, I'm sorry. Okay, well, I guess I could go next because we'll work our way around. And I do agree and appreciate the answers to the questions above. I guess we're not really saving money, and we have requests from the lodge. I would be in favor of moving forward with the walking trail project, just to get people out. Who knows how long this COVID stuff's gonna last, and that's about all that people at the lodge probably have to look forward to is going out for walks. So I would be in favor of that. I do agree with everything below it, and if there was something mentioned about maybe grants for the spring park tour the last time we met, a possibility.
Councilor Deputy Mayor Jensen, there will be a possibility of grants for the pour and play at the spray park. Gwen told me yesterday that they just received notice. They had put in an application to, I think, the Southeastern Alberta Foundation from the spray park, and they got only got $2,400. I guess they had a significant number of requests for playgrounds, spray parks, so they basically divvied it out, I think $2,400 across the board. So there is $2,400 for the spray park for accessibility, of which this would make the spray park accessible. People were in wheelchairs or walkers, that would make it accessible for them versus having to go through grass or sod to access it. So there is $2,400 there. The other grant that we've applied for in the past for this type of project is through the Alberta Tire Recyclers Association, and they've indicated that they're not sure if they're going to have a program or not yet in 2021. They'll be making that decision early in the new year, whether there was a program or not. So if there's no program, there's no option. If there is a program, there's the potential to get 18 of that 36 back. But no guarantees any which way at this point in time. So if I can read the mayor's saying, and there will be a cost to finish the project anyways, whether it's sod or whether it's pour and play. And as Chris's suggestion is that maybe we do sod it and deal with it from that perspective and then see how things work in 2021. And or the other option is we apply for a grant and see where it's at. And if we hear in time to be able to get the money, get it in place before the spray park opens, is another option as well.
So
So,
it could be a spring budget adjustment.
Yeah.
to-
or at any time, if we apply if they have the program when we apply in January and we hear in March or whatever their time frame is, then we can come back to council and say, we have applied. It puts a lot of pressure on council in that regard to come up and match it, but, because otherwise you got that 18, if it's 18,000 from them, it's kind of in limbo if nobody does anything. But I think it makes it easier for you guys as council to make that decision knowing you're getting 50% of the funding from another provider, so.
Great, and that's all I have with that. Couple of the notes I wrote down was to eliminate that street light
Okay,
on
12th Avenue,
Yeah, and then the fire department, just that $13,000 that we had discussed at the last meeting. You had mentioned that there were 8 at 2,000 apiece, so is that 16,000?
Well,
I did math.
Deputy Mayor Jensen, there is some money already in that
Oh, okay.
budget, so that would I think that raised the amount available for training to 23,000 from 7, so.
Okay,
So there is some additional dollars that were already there. That's the increase to it, so.
Okay.
And we are trying to work to see how we can make it best fit in budget. So we had a group go already this spring. We've had a second group start in October, and they won't finish until April or May of 21. And that's a $2,000 a piece firefighter, which we have 8 signed up for. We're looking at our 2020 budget to say, is there some room left in travel and training in 2020 where we maybe can put some of that 16,000 toward this year to lower the hit for 2021, so.
And then the playground program. I sat in on the social and resiliency audit yesterday, and there was a lot mentioned about childcare and after-school care of the 181 participants that they had surveyed in the community. So it really kind of got me thinking about that, the discussion that we had about full-day program, and not kind of avoiding the childcare thing, but people in the past have kind of looked at it kind of like a childcare thing. It might be worth doing the question, right, to get the, it seems as though by that audit, there is a concern for that, and I think the summer months will probably be, when it runs, it is a tough time. I know when the day homes fill up, instantly at the last week of August is that full. So if it was that full-time, dependent upon COVID, of course, because we don't know what that's gonna look like, and if you can even have a full program, but just kind of, yeah, with the results of that survey, it kind of tweaked the behavior, and maybe we should do a little bit more questionnaire on a full day programming there as it has been in the past. And I had in here. True, I think that was it.
I also have the street light listed as a pretty easy removal. Spray park, walkway skirting, whatever that floor is gonna be. Not real interested at 36, but if it's a 50% grant, that's far more feasible. And I would think if we get a grant next year for it, you can carry it for a year with whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's not gonna be a rush decision. The other one, the public works truck was 43,000. This is kind of I guess the downfall of Brent and his annual maintenance. His trucks look good. He's got a shop to keep him inside all the time. The bottom 2 trucks get 5,000 kilometers a year. One gets 10,000. The high mileage ones, 13,000 kilometers a year. I feel they've got a fair bit of life when they're only 110,000 kilometers on the odometer on the old ones. Yes, they're old. I would trust Brent if he says they're costing a lot of money to maintain or they're not trustworthy, then that's different, but a vehicle well maintained at, I think, 110,000 kilometers, I'd have faith in that operating for 5,000 kilometers a year for a while yet.
Yeah, we never will mile out a vehicle.
Yeah. And to get rid of them, there's obviously also not much value in a
No.
2004 half ton.
No,
So I think they're more valuable to keep in the fleet than to tear out. The Ohio, we've had that discussion. Has there ever been investigation into leasing those mowers? Like I see there's 24, 36-month lease, 0%. Kubota, John Deere, I don't know what the flavor is.
Councilor Olsen, I don't know if we've looked at leasing the small equipment. The only vehicle or the only piece of equipment we lease is the grader, and like I said, it's not my favorite thing to do is lease, because if you're at 0%, different story. But,
Yeah, and that's my only interest too, is something smaller like that of 30,000. If it's 0%, I mean, the bank isn't a whole lot more than 0%, but it is more.
Yeah.
May as well use their money than ours.
Okay, no, we can look at that.
But again, only if it's 0%. Yeah, and that's all I have. And of course, that all those changes would balance out. I don't know if there's any appetite to increase taxes, to hold that at 0%. These changes would make that doable. That's it.
Councilor Campion?
Oh, boy. I haven't really gone through this a whole lot, but I wrote some down. I agree with Chris 100% about that. Not increasing taxes, I don't believe in that. Especially this year with COVID, the people in our community are hurting now. They're trying to keep their businesses going. I think that is the last thing we need to throw at them is a tax increase. So I don't want to see it increased. I wrote a few things down. I think we could put that screener on hold, the 15,000 for that. Once the golf course pays up their money, we could think of purchasing something like that. The arena sound system way, every budget we do, it's 20 some grand.
I agree.
You know, I just can't see that. That's,
And it never
every
happened.
time we turn around, it's either the sound system or it's new rubber in one of the dressing rooms, or I just can't see how this stuff is falling apart that quick all the time. Every budget we do, we got the same thing.
So
looking at it.
just to clarify, so the sound system, you're right, it's been on the budget for a number of years, but it's been there based on grant application, and it's in here based on grant application only.
Is that matching?
Yes,
And so what would, so then the township would be happy?
yes.
The Fox Lake electrical upgrades, $30,000. I don't see a real point in that, you know, right now. That isn't, we can invest in that, that's not gonna fill our campground up. And what's with the tennis court resurfacing? Is it a must or?
Well, we talked
I see a
about
lot
it,
of
we
them
talked
playing
about
on
last week, it's in, if you go out there, and I know now's a bad time to go out there, but if you go out there, it's in pretty poor condition. You can still play on it, but if you're an avid
There's
competitive
some of
tennis
the
player,
cracks, there's two cracks that are about this wide and this much unlevel. And this year being out there, probably averaging 4 nights a week, it was occupied. I see it every day when I, of course,
Yeah,
leave.
well,
I haven't
see
seen
a
it
lot
like
on there
that
too.
before. So to see people using it, especially when we're trying to encourage people to go outside, investments like that are worth it to get people outside, active, healthy, and maintain our infrastructure.
I guess in my mind, Councilor Campion, it's a town asset, so it's ours. So can we go another year with tennis court in the same condition as it was? Yeah. Is it the end of the world? No, but eventually you're gonna have to you're gonna have to fix it and get it into a proper, proper condition. And it's, I think it's probably the last time it was resurfaced was probably 20+ years ago. So it's not something you will have to do on a regular basis, but it's been probably 20+ years since the town's invested any money into that amenity. So,
Is this 25,000 allocated to it that you've got here? Is this if there was a paving crew in town, like, say we're paving the street and that anyway? I mean, what would it take, 2 loads of asphalt to do that, or?
yeah, it wouldn't take much, and it's not that we would go repave the whole thing. They would probably scrape off all of the existing rubber surface over top of it, which has deteriorated. Then they will look at the cracks and probably cut those cracks out, refill them and level them. They probably, and I don't know for a fact, but they probably wouldn't come in and pave over top of everything and then relay. But we haven't gone through that process with them yet. So it just was identified, and I know it isn't I guess from my perspective, it's not an asset that I can feel really proud of, to say to somebody, oh, we've got great tennis courts in town, come use our tennis courts. I would feel uncomfortable making that comment because they're not in great shape. So they're usable, but they're not in
They're also
great
kind
shape.
of laughable when you're out there.
It can be, especially for someone who is a fairly decent tennis player. Like if you're kids who don't know any better and you're just hitting the ball back and forth, it probably isn't gonna matter. But if you have some tennis experience or tennis skills, you're gonna say, geez, these courts aren't very good. So
Well, even that, it's not the level of competitive, it's the
No.
fact that your toes can disappear in
Yeah.
some of those
Yeah.
cracks while you're running. It's
There's a possibility of getting injured as well.
yeah,
yeah.
there can be, yeah.
No. Well, if it's at that degree, then it has to be left on the priority list. The no turn. I feel that I just have a problem with spending $30,000 on a no turn. I have one I paid $3,200 for, and it does the job quite well. Just
For
that
your yard.
30,000, you're paying.
Yeah.
You're paying for green and yellow paint, is what you're paying for. As far as I'm concerned, that's a terrible price for a no-turn thing. I don't know.
That's Councilor Campion, that's the price of a commercial 6-foot front deck mower. That's gonna be used, probably 40 hours a week for 12 hours, 14 weeks a year, so.
If you were buying this, was going for was it not down for the spray park is where it was designated for? The no-turn?
No, it's just part of our fleet.
Or just part of the fleet then?
So we've got, I think if you look on the fleet sheet, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 mowers ranging from 2006 to 2018. And one of them's at the cemetery. One of them is designated for Hector King Hunter Park, and it was donated by John Deere, I believe, to the association prior to them turning it over to us. So two of the 6 are designated in those areas, and the other 4 are ones that go out on our circuit on a regular basis. So we just try, like I said, we're trying to purchase one, or the plan is to purchase one every 2 years. And then it's not that our oldest will be 2 years, then you'll be dropping off the one that's 8 or 10 years old. At the point in time. There, for our parts crew, they are probably our key piece of equipment. And I think 30 might be a touch high, Councilor Campion, but it's being on the safe side. I know the last one we bought, I believe, was 26,000. So it's, allowed for a potential small increase, but we might still be able to get it you know, in that same range, so.
So can you trade the old one in?
I don't know if they would take it on a trade-in, Counselor
Okay.
Stickle, but we have sold them in the past.
Okay.
We have tendered them and sold them. I think the last one I can remember we sold, I believe Tammy and Kyle Rosine bought for out on their acreage.
Yeah, we stopped in and talked to Rob Gilliland yesterday, and the price is about 28,000. So it's been rounded up.
It's on the higher side just to be
And so
conservative.
well, and he said as far as purchasing a new one every 2 years, it's never been done before. Usually they go a little longer. And that given that this is a commercial, there are commercial mowers and they are expected to run on a high basis and everything, that they should last 15,000 hours. So that's why I asked what the hours were for these.
Yeah, and we don't have the hours on them. We didn't have a chance yesterday to get the hours, so.
So I would have to support Councillor Campion's in putting that on hold. Which one were you looking at switching out?
Well, we would have switched the oldest one
The
out, so.
2016? That's
The
what I thought.
probably the
I'm sorry,
2006.
2006, I'm sorry.
Well, probably at that age, you won't get much for.
No, and I,
To
yeah.
resell on anyway because of the age of it.
No, I think the last one we sold to Rosine's, I think it was $3,000, rings a bell, was what they paid for it, so.
And I think that's what Rob had mentioned, $3,000 to $4,000.
Yeah.
For recovered cost, or revenue.
I don't have any more than that. I'm ready to say I haven't really had time to go through this because I was on vacation. So.
Some vacation. Is it called a co-vacation?
Just the time out,
Do lots of travel.
yeah. Yeah, I did lots of that over.
Counselor Stickle.
Well, I think most of it's been mentioned, but I would say no to a 2% tax increase. I don't believe this is the time to be 2% increase. The walking path. We only have probably one resident at the lodge that's ever brought this up and complained about it. When I said to him, what are you going to do if you do get a walking path down to the grade, is where he wanted it, then do we have to put another crosswalk in? Do we have to put another sign in? Well, I never thought of that. But we do have the crosswalk and most people go out to the mall or whatever they cross, and they like to go that way rather than walking all the way down. You talk to a few of the residents, they're quite happy with what we have. So I'm saying no to the walking path until we get some money built up or we have money in the budget to do this with. Professional services. I know you touched on it, I just couldn't remember. In 75,000 to 153.
Yeah.
Why double?
Well, the costs, the doubling costs are identified. So the doubling costs are identified in your overview under expenditures administration. So we talked about it last time. So we've got the AVG security, which is additional, which is new. Every 3 years we do that. We've got and I had Councillor Olson explain it, the multi-factor authentication is a security issue, I guess, for connecting to internet or connecting to server, if I'm reading that correctly.
Since the start of this year, we're more of a town presence in the cloud. It's increased
Right.
security and authentication for every login for the town. I looked at logs just it's 2 weeks ago. There is, since all these email addresses are out on the internet, and you can log in from anywhere. It used to be you could only log in from on the town network, but when it's hosted on the cloud, there is about 30 attempts every hour on at hana.ca from China, from Russia. With this authentication, you can suddenly stop it. It's only from Canada. Or if Kim decides to go to China, you can allow his from China. But that's the most threatening thing when you're, of course, exist on the cloud, is anybody can get to it from anywhere. These companies that try to get logins and passwords, they're huge. Like, they have HR departments, they have retirement plans, pensions, and that's all they do all day is try to farm information. So it'll happen someday for every company. You just really need to try to limit it. So it's a small price to pay.
And Councillor Stickle, that's, I'd say this to Lori on a regular basis. That's one of my concerns is computer security. And I'm by no means an expert, but when I read that, I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago, the city of St. John got hacked and held for ransom. That's what they're doing. And among other things. And I just don't want to, want to be that guy, because our public expects that we know what we're doing and we're taking care of our security of our IT and our computers and our networks and all of that stuff. That's why we've got that security training that we send to staff and council, just to make sure you're as that doesn't guarantee that it's not going to happen, but it gives you a bit of an idea what to look for, what to watch for, what to not click on. When we get into security, I look to Lori and I look to Kyle, who's been providing us with expertise in terms of what do we need to keep our systems as secure as should be expected a municipality of our size should be doing. So, and that's something that Kyle, in his other role, working with the town on the IT side, has advised, and I take those recommendations seriously, because I don't have the knowledge myself, and I want to make sure we're not in that situation. So that's a small piece of it, but that's $3,900 annually. The hotspot upgrade is at all the facilities. So that,
I should just add that $3,900 fluxes with, it's per user, so it fluxes. Like this year, there'll be a little bit more because there'll be a transition from council. So we'll still have some old council users transitioning to new council users. So
unless all this group is
Right.
reelected in October.
Right, and then there's summer students or temporary stuff. Anyways, that fluxes.
So the internet hotspot upgrade is there, but that would upgrade the internet at all, or the hotspot, the Wi-Fi hotspot in all our facilities, which is something that our residents want. That's often the first question when someone walks into our facilities is, what's the Wi-Fi? How do I connect? The other thing that's in here, which is, again, all of these are able to be removed if council wishes to remove them. But, some of them we're certainly, from administration's side, we're gonna probably put forward a stronger argument on. Council chambers technology, we talked a little bit about that last week. Is that something that has to happen? Probably not. Is it something that we could look at? And we don't exactly have the plan, but it would definitely involve a tool similar to you have sitting in front of you today, which is now broadcasting us live and accommodating users who wish to view. And now that we're into, even when COVID's gone, I don't see this as an option that's going to be removed. I think people are going to want to have this option available to them at all times. So it's a bit of an upgrade in our existing council chambers, but also portable enough that while we are in COVID and we are maybe operating out of a different facility for social distancing's perspective, that it does work. So all of these are options to be removed. Again, we talked about the server upgrade last time, and Kyle has recommended that we should have a new server and then take our existing one and have it as a backup so that it's there. And the big chunk of this, Councillor Stickle, is we have an application in to the Federation of Canadian Municipalities for funding for asset management upgrades, which would include purchasing some additional software for our staff to use that mixes with the GIS program that Palliser runs, so we can have that. It also will upgrade our, look at doing an update to our infrastructure management plan. When you guys came on council, you got that plan that was done in 2014. Some of those items have been done since that time, so taking them off and looking what future priorities are. And again, that was done in 2014. So some roads that were in better condition in 2014 maybe have deteriorated more than other roads that we assumed were going to deteriorate. So it's an upgrade of that. And it is also one thing that I think we are missing and need to do a better job on here is building condition assessments. Our underground infrastructure, we know is aged, and we have as good of an idea as we can, the condition of it. But what we lack and what we lack when we come to these meetings with you guys is life cycle plans for all of our facilities. We've got a lot of money invested in facilities, but if we have a life cycle plan that details all of the components in a facility, what age they are, when a typical replacement period would be, then when we are preparing our budget, we basically go, okay, we need, there's 2 furnaces and a hot water tank that should be replaced in this facility, or the roof. Like we've got some major, it won't be this council dealing with, but there are going to be some major cost implications down the road with some of our older facilities. And when I say older facilities, I mean the arena, curling rink, and the community center. They've served our community well, and they are in fairly decent condition right now. I'm not saying they're in poor condition, but they are 40 years old, and you may have in the next 5 or 10 years, they may have to replace a roof on the arena, or they may have to replace the ice pad on the arena. And if you're replacing an ice pad on a rink, you're looking at well over $1 million. So there's some significant costs that are coming that way. And now just with the cost escalating of building new facilities, and we've had this discussion, if something happened to that building and it had to be closed, council would be in a situation where to build an arena curling rink building like we have now, you'd probably be looking at $15-20 million. Can we do that, or is it just got to a point where we go, okay, sorry, we don't have those amenities in our community because we can't afford them. That's why I'm glad to date that we're able to transfer the $90,000 from special areas, that little bonus, because the Centennial Place is paid off, that we can transfer that into reserves. So over 10 years, you build up $1 million. Then, then you're not the poor sister at the table looking for money from everybody else. You've at least got some money that you can come to the table with when you're trying to create partnerships, whether it's with special areas or the user groups, to say, well, we're able to come to the table with $1 million and we need $2 million. How can we find the other $1 million, versus coming to the table with 0, saying we need $2 million? So those are the things that are in there. Councillor Stickle, I know it's a big jump.
It just,
And just to be clear, the asset management project, the 50,000, that's funded in this budget on a grant of 40,000. So if we don't find out about the grant, or we get turned down by the grant, then that project is probably off the table, which would save $40,000. I still think the information we would get through that process would be valuable, but it would be then a decision whether council would want to fund something like that on on a full dime. And at this point, we're budgeting on putting in 10, getting 40, and being able to deal with that asset management project. So it is a big chunk, no doubt. So,
So it would save 10.
no, it would save,
Yeah, but if 40 is coming from the.
right, it would save a net, it would be a net of a 10, it would be a
Yeah.
net of 10, that's correct, Counselor Bowden, yes. Because 40 right now is coming from a grant. So I hope that answered your question, Counselor Stickle.
I'm totally mixed up.
I did my job then, did I?
Dazzle.
Furnace at the airport.
Yep.
Did someone recommend that we have to change it, or is this just,
It's an original.
that doesn't mean anything?
That doesn't mean anything, but it's probably 30 years old, 35 years old. I know that doesn't mean anything. So we were just trying to replace them in the game before
So
they
we're
do.
replacing it because it's 30 years old or because it's broke?
It's not broke. We've had it fixed a couple of times, but it's still functioning. It's still in there right now. So one, we're replacing it because of its age.
Yeah.
And two, we're replacing it because of its efficiency.
Do we get those buildings all checked out every once in a while for, like, clean the furnaces and clean the ductwork and?
I don't know if we've done a lot of ductwork cleaning, to be honest with you, Councillor Stickle. I can't remember us having anybody
What
in
about all
cleaning
the
out
other
the house.
buildings that, do we?
We change the furnace filters regularly and get them inspected regularly, but as far as ductwork, I've never, in my time here, we've never had a furnace cleaning company come in and clean all the ducts in any of our facilities.
Okay.
Was it not done at the library recently?
Maybe after all the construction.
I think it was.
Did they?
Because we
Could,
were finding like beer balls and stuff in the one.
Really?
that was
Doing the
probably
renovation
long-term staff who worked for the town.
His office.
Or a commission member.
That was actually the old council chamber.
Oh,
So
yeah.
there was
Bets are off.
I don't, we may have, Deputy Mayor Jensen, I can't recall off the top of my head, but we may have there, but I know it's not something that's, that we do on a regular basis. The only other thing I know we do is we have to get our concessions inspected and cleaned. So at the arena, the community center, and the curling rink, and the exhaust fans cleaned there on a regular basis. But as far as furnace cleaning stuff, I don't know if we've done very much of that.
Okay. Street light, do we all agree, that we can go another year without a street light? Sound systems already been talked about, the mowers already been talked about. I have one here that may make all you mad at me. The 1% COLA adjustment, I would like to see that included. And I'll tell you why. And I'll tell you how we can do it. If council were to take a 12.5% reduction in council on everything, we could cover this. I believe this would show all the staff we appreciate what they do and how they keep things running smoothly in our town. I believe it would show the taxpayers that we do care about our town. I don't believe that anyone here who ran for council did it for the money. I believe we had other things on our agenda, and I think this would show that we really do care about our town. We care about our staff. I think from the secretary to the CAO, they all do a great job. This would just be a little,
It's only 12%.
it's only 12%, that's right. I don't know. I don't know what the rest of you think, but
Yeah, Councillor Stickle was in the other day and floated this idea by us, and I didn't necessarily do, scientific math, but basically, as we've got in the document, if a COLA was added, it would cost $11,563. So, you know, it's basically $1,000 a month off of council is one way of looking at it amongst through the seven of you. We certainly be more, I don't want to use the word penalties, but it would affect the mayor the most.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure, obviously, he's not aware of this discussion, and so, it, like I said, I think total council honorariums, and Rhonda can correct me if I'm wrong, is it's, I can look up here.
11,000,
Total council honorariums is
Yeah.
basically,
80.
it is about $78,000.
Thought it would be
Says 89.
No, but that 89 is more than the honorarium, so the 89, it's about 79 that includes the honorariums. It's the additional dollars is your per diems for those who go to meetings or go to AUMA and you charge a per diem. That's the difference between that and 89. So there's the actual month-to-month base honorarium that council makes is basically around 70, 78, 79,000 in total.
So it'd be less than 12%. I don't know what the rest of you think.
Well,
I can leave now if you want.
I disagree with Larry. I think that our staff is paid pretty well. And I think that for what we do, the many meetings and that we attend, council like this budget meeting and that we're not overpaid either. And we do set the precedent for the incoming councils. People that'll run will look at what they get paid for, get paid, because some of them think that it's a freebie. They do it for nothing, but it ain't the case. So
This is just for 1 year, Ross.
well,
New council can decide what, if they want to go back, they want to keep it.
I might pipe in and I might be exited out of here as well. And just given the state of the economy, the unknowns and everything else, there was a 7% rollback in wages for all premier staff, 10% reduction in the premier salary in 2019, and a 5% rollback in all MLAs in 2019. I think it's kind of, and I am going to be affected the most because I have family that it would affect as well. So I would think it would be, show good faith if there was a bit of a reduction or a 0% increase in the staff. And I may consider supporting a 1% COLA in that case. If there is some sort of an issue, I know everybody does a wonderful job. I know that they are. I don't think anybody will leave because of a potential or a reduction. I think there are people in our community who are on dire straits. And I think it has become an entitlement. And I think it would, I'm concerned about the morale of everybody in this community, not just the staff. I know the staff do a wonderful job. I don't know that they would not do a wonderful job if they did not, or I would hope they would still do a wonderful job if they were asked to maybe support what our provincial government is doing and there have been, I think I've said this over and over again, that I've experienced the same thing. You do the job, you show up and you do it 110%. If you don't, then you shouldn't be getting paid. And so I don't think that not giving them a COLA, and maybe it's a matter of if there's a reserve at the end of the year, maybe we give a bonus. I don't think this is the time to be automatically increasing everybody's salary because we don't even have an idea what MSI funds will be. And that's enough for me, but that is my comment.
You work for Trudeau?
Oh, give me
So-
Go round
I've
one
worked-
circle here.
I've worked with Alberta Agriculture.
I know
in the
that.
80s. And we all took that was fiscal responsibility as far as being a government employee.
That was just a joke.
I know it was a joke, but just so you know the comments, is everybody's hurting to, everybody's hurting. When is
I know
a
that.
private employee, when is a small business man ever had an increase in their salary? There are guys that are not getting paid, they're not taking a wage because they're trying to get they're trying to help their company survive. So there's
So
all
you're not
sorts of
in favor
scenarios.
of showing the staff that we appreciate work.
I think there are other ways that we can show that we appreciate them. Do they not realize we already took a reduction when we decided that we would roll back and take our honorarium after taxes? And it's a small amount. Perhaps there's other ways that we can, cut that would allow for a 0% where for 1 year and see how that goes. Does that mean people are gonna quit and go somewhere else? I doubt it. Does that mean that we don't appreciate them? No, it doesn't. It means that we're sending a message to our community saying that we're all in this together.
Anybody else have an opinion?
Yeah, I might be a bit shorter, but I'll support a 0%, and that's what I based my adjustments on. I see what a reduction in salary does to morale. I mean, a full-time job is probably where it's gonna end up. But yeah, a 0% is acceptable, I think, in today's times.
And I think it's not only, I think Special Areas is looking at it, a reduction. I don't know,
Anything else?
So just so we're all on the same page, so in this budget, if at the number one thing in expenditures, so in the overview, if what we've got in the budget right now is no COLA, so no COLA, there is grid changes for 3 staff members and when I say grid changes, move to a different grid. There is increases for 5 permanent staff on our grid system, so those are steps. So we go from 0 to 5. When you're at 5, you're at the top. So there is still 5 staff that are not on the top of the grid. And it does include reduction of hours for a staff person from the 20 budget to the 21 budget. And there are some savings in this year's budget, as we've talked about, because we have budgeted for 2 long-term staff. One is retiring here right away, and one is on long-term disability. But looking at replacing them with someone who is entering our organization and would be entering the organization at a lower step on the grid. So right now, as it sits with those changes in, there is a reduction of $13,394 from the 2020 salaries to 2021 salaries. So that's what's in there. If anybody has any questions, I just want to make sure everybody's all on the same page as to what's in here. If council wishes to make adjustments to any of that, that's certainly their prerogative.
Is there any opportunity in not replacing some of those positions? And using, after those individuals retire, not bringing in new people to maintain whatever the numbers are prior to retirement? Like not hiring another one.
We've
to
looked at that closely. If you're gonna make some changes to staffing levels, the best time to make changes is when someone is leaving the organization. And so we've looked at it close. We have not hired anyone at this point in time for the Public Works position. We haven't advertised, we haven't gone down. The challenge you get with that is if you don't, then when you need those people, you don't have them. Can I tell you that we need to have a complement of 6 Public Works staff every day of the year? No, but the days that you need them, when we do snow removal for 3 weeks or 4 weeks at a time, you need all 6. When we do water, sewer, digs, you need all 6. It's hard to adjust one way or the other. We've been operating on our parks crew one short since February. Have we got by? Yes. Has it been a challenge? Yes. Even now with our park staff, we had one of our full-time guys hurt himself at home. So we're down to 2. So that puts a lot of pressure when you're trying to keep a facility open 7 days a week when you've got 2 staff. So there's things that are happening that aren't being done that aren't critical at this point in time, but they catch up to you over a period of time when you don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. So that's why we're looking at replacing them. We do have an ad for a temporary Parks and Rec person right now, because like I said, we're down to 2 right now, and it's probably a short-term thing. But my fear as we move along is and I guess I have a fear of COVID, if one of our staff get in close contact with someone who has COVID, they're required to isolate for 14 days. Well, I don't want to be in a position where we're shutting the arena down because we don't have staff. So we are going along the road with a temporary one there because we don't know the future of our staff person that's on disability. And if that person is able to come back to work, or in what fashion it changes dynamics. So we're only going temporary, and we're going to be very specific because not even knowing what's going to happen today, but there could be a closure of our facilities again. That could be the situation we're back into provincially. And so that's my decision has been, if we need to have a clause in any employment agreement we enter into with a temporary staff that says if the facilities or the operation is affected by COVID, your hours will be limited or reduced or eliminated, because we can't, I can't look you guys in the eye and say, oh yeah, we need that extra person while our rink's closed. We're hoping it doesn't come to that situation, but we don't know what's going to happen. Right now we're operating. We've been fortunate in our region to have low case counts and being able to operate. And our teams, our teams using those facilities, our people using Centennial Place have been able to continue to operate and manage, although it's a modified program, they've been able to continue to go. If something happens and we get shut down today or next week or the week after, we got to be able to adapt. So we have looked at that closely. It's a tough thing on a short-term basis. I'm sure we can get by, and we have with the Parks and Rec guys. But and Public Works, we probably could get by short-term, but I don't know. I think eventually it would catch up to you. So
Can you float staff?
pardon me.
Can you float staff, like from one department to the other?
In a perfect world, we could. we're just not in a perfect world right now. Like our staff, our staff at the arena, for example, I don't think any of them have their qualifications to drive any of the tandems or have any experience operating any of the equipment. And vice versa, the guys on the public works crew haven't ran the arena, haven't operated that piece of equipment. So there is, we haven't done any cross training yet. It's something that we probably should look at.
Just for backup, yeah.
For backup, the other thing that, and again, it's more of a staffing thing, the other thing you get into the situation where, you know, the staff at the arena, the downfall with that job is they have to work evenings and weekends. And the advantage for public works, for the most part, is they get to work Monday to Friday, 7:30 to 4:30. Yes, there's some weekends, there's some evenings, depending on how things are going, but it's always a hard adjustment. But I'm not saying it can't be done. If you say to one of the public works crews, you gotta come work evenings and weekends, you know, geez, that's not what I signed up for. I didn't know that going in. But if they want to retain a job and be able to work, that's, you know, push comes to shove, that's what we need to do to move forward. So hasn't been any cross training here. Should there be? Probably. It's just, the trouble is most of our crews are busy. So to take time from this crew to go have them train to do this just means this work isn't getting done over here. So right now we're not in a good position to do any cross training. We have on occasion for an evening, if we needed to, brought in someone like a Pam Berry or a Lynn to work at the arena because generally they can do everything but flood the ice. So they'll come in, they'll clean the dressing rooms, they'll make sure everybody's going the right direction, doing the right things. But like you can only maybe go one night without flooding or scraping, and you basically say to the group, okay, this is the challenge, and coaches go, okay, yeah, we'll work around it, and they do that one night knowing it's a short-term thing. So
the other thing, just to get back to the staffing, is that one of the pluses of long-term staff, or one of the negatives of a long-term staff actually, is they have holidays.
Yeah.
You know, like if you've got 5 staff members with 4 weeks of holidays, you're short for
Yeah.
4 months of the year.
Yeah.
And
Well-
then sick time is
Yeah.
another thing you kind of have to factor.
and our group has been
I'm aware of that.
our group has been very good, knock on wood. Our group's been very good in terms of being very responsible in terms of sick time. We have very few occasions, and we have no occasions that I'm aware of that anybody has abused their sick time. You know, we've got a pretty dedicated group, so they use it when they need it. That's not saying they don't need it from time to time, but they're pretty good, so.
Given light of COVID and just bringing up the sick time piece, so in that 14-day isolation, so do they use sick time?
Yes.
I'm just wondering about reserving some money if it comes to a point, say, where they would have to isolate and they've already used up sick time. Would you then like to pay them to take the time off rather than them having to take time unpaid? That's just a thought.
What
But
we've-
it's a limited, I don't know, with the travel and sustenance for council, I think we could make up the difference with the COLA with that, because we're likely not gonna be traveling or attending conferences there. And the amount for the 1% COLA we spent on a night for a crosswalk.
Yeah.
So
It's
it's a minimal amount of.
at the end of the day, though, I think what council has to wrestle with on the COLA, and that's why you're elected, is it's a political decision. It's not a large amount of money that's gonna make or break anything one way or the other. It's a political decision. And when we've had freezes in the past from, you know, councils have been very good in the time I've been here. I think in the 7-8 years that I've been here, I think we've had once, maybe twice, we've had freezes. And majority of staff understand that. And yeah, that's the way things go. I can understand. You still have some staff that that see that as a negative. But it's rare, but at the end of the day, I think the biggest thing is for you guys is what message are you sending to the community in regards to our economic situation, the economic climate. It's $11,000. It's not a huge amount of money, and yeah, we can find it somewhere in here easily and not even change anything. But salaries are always a hot button, hot topic in the community, one way or the other. And if people get $11,000. People, oh, they got a 1% increase. Well, with some of our staff, that equates to 28 cents an hour. So it's not that they're getting huge increase. They might walk home. They might get an increase of $500 a year. So it's not going to change their life tremendously either. I think it's more of as Councillor Stickle said, it's more of a bit of a small message that you're sending to them that, yes, we appreciate it. Yes, and this is the best we can do in these times. I will say 100% that I think our staff are compensated fairly. When you take comparisons to other municipalities and other governments, I think we're compensated fairly. And I know at one point, it was before I got here, councils had to make some serious adjustments because they weren't compensating their staff fairly. I think once they got it to that point, council's been pretty good over the last number of years by having a COLA and keeping a slight movement, staying in the ballpark, keeping the grid in a fairly decent situation. So it's not like councils have sat back and not changed anything and you've fallen back and you're not compensating fairly. I think we are being compensated fairly. It's more of a, like I said, it's more of a what message are you sending? The same with a tax increase. The 2% tax increase, a lot of people aren't even going to notice on their tax bill. But it's the message that you're sending to them, that you're doing your best and you're trying to accommodate them. One of the things we've done, that council's done, and this budget is predicated on that we didn't pull out, but we reduced the penalties for non-payment of taxes in half. That's had an implication here of $25,000 to $30,000. Those are the people that aren't able to pay their taxes that you're assisting, that we've assisted by doing that. And we haven't brought that back to the table saying, okay, let's reinstate those taxes. I think, so they're left at 4 and 5% where they were 8 and 10%. So I think that's another message, when people say, well, I can't afford to pay my taxes. You guys, we've lowered that penalty. You hope you don't get into that situation, but we have, a number of properties on an annual basis that find themselves in that situation. So by lowering the penalties, you've done a bit to assist them in that regard, keeping it in line so that it's not, at the end of the day, that penalty doesn't jump significantly, that it drowns them. So, but the tax increase, the COLA adjustments, those are all political decisions. So you have to go with what your gut says.
I haven't done this yet, Lingo. Not wanting to put you on the spot, Kim, but have you done an assessment of what the impact on the budget was with the not opening the visitor center last year? Just out of curiosity.
Well, to be honest with you, haven't done a detailed one, but in here, if we operate the visitor information center as if it's fully normal, no pre-COVID, there's an expenditure of $52,000 and there's a revenue of $19,000. So you're looking at a $30,000 difference. If we don't open the visitor information center and go as in a COVID year, I think if we look back on our budget, it was probably $17,000 to $19,000. So it's certainly cheaper for us not to open. We save money by not opening. Probably, I'm going to guess you're probably $10,000 to $12,000 to $15,000 savings by not opening.
Has there been, sorry, Larry, do you mind if I ask a question in your time? Has there been any communication from tourism or anybody with regards to the VICs being closed? As to whether or not they could be open in the new year, or have no idea? Or,
The way we run ours is kind of an anomaly, and our goal is to get highway traffic or to increase business in Hannah, so that's the goal of the
Yeah.
staff. So the larger ones that are funded provincially or pretty critical, of course, the staff are doing everything in their power, so balance those places to keep them open and running, but tourism has just gone quiet.
and you haven't heard anything from,
No, they're saying do what you want, what you will, when you can. The littler ones didn't do anything. Some are operating and saying, we can drop stuff off curbside, but as an information source, it's all available online. It's not used that way anymore unless they want face-to-face. So we can't do the face-to-face.
Yeah.
They're struggling.
And I think at this point, like I said, we've got it in as if we're going to operate. Still a lot of questions around that, where COVID's gonna be May of 21. We could be in a very good spot and cases numbers are down and vaccines are out there and we're back to pre-COVID days or close to pre-COVID days, or we could be back in a lockdown again if things don't change. So those things are all out of our control. But again, at the end of the day, it's a service we provide, and we provide it to residents primarily through, and that's what people miss, is an opportunity to go out there and have an ice cream cone and visit, and it's a quality of life thing, right? It's not critical probably to any one of our residents that we have a visitor information center out there so they can get tourism information. Because as Lori said, and we know, there's so much information on the internet now that it's changing the way those things are, so.
any opportunity to rent it out as far as accommodation? Like a rental space upstairs or?
We have our upstairs leased out to Stage Hannah and the
Oh, yeah,
Dance
that's right.
Association currently. That's not to say, and I don't know if the town has explored this option, that's not to say that we put out an RFP to our community to say anyone interested in running that, throw us a proposal, and they could run it as a private business. They could run it and serve ice cream or serve whatever they wanted to do or sell whatever they wanted out of it. So I don't think we've ever gone down that road either, so.
Well, that's the way it was. It was run that way a couple of years ago because my wife ran it for a year. We subleased it from Sharif. This is the way you had the contract.
Okay, must have been quite a while ago though, Council
Oh, that
Kennedy.
was when it was in the
We haven't
news.
seen Year 2000, I believe it was,
Yeah,
is when we ran it. And she had it before and it was it was contracts out, and I think that's the way it should go. I can't really see it opening. And I think if we do open it, you're just asking for trouble. You're subjecting your staff and everything to people coming from everywhere. You don't know what they got.
no, that's right.
I wouldn't feel comfortable at all at okay now.
5 months from now is a lifetime in today's world.
I think it's a little
So-
soon for all of that. I think we best to just leave it. I think we kind of steered a little off track.
I think 5 months from now, it's gonna be any
Um,
different. It's only gonna be worse.
With the COLA that we were originally at, we kind of got off track. Do we want to do a show of hands, or do we want to kind of touch everything that go through? Because Council Bowden has yet to go through what her notes were, and then do show of hands so we can kind of give administration a little bit, because right now there's very little guidance that we've provided.
Well, Deputy Mayor Jensen, what I would suggest is we need to go through Councillor Bowden's questions, comments, and then we've got a list here. Then I think what we would intend then next week, and hopefully the mayor's in attendance. It's always nice to have everybody here and everybody putting their input in, then we would basically take the items that have been raised today as items such as tobacco purchase. I think just consensus wise, I could look around the room and go, okay, 12th Avenue streetlight can be pulled. There's no varying degrees there. You know, we still would need to do some potential work on Epic Adventure and whether that changes. Halftime, we could look at some lease options as was suggested and bring back. Tax increase, I think even the mayor's comment to everyone is he would like to see it be zero in a perfect world. So I think going back, that's something that I think all of council would like to see is it be zero. And so I think we need to make some decisions at minimum to get that down to a zero. We will talk, Councilor Campion, you know, then we'll throw items back on the table for you to vote on next week once we've got some more information. But things like the screener was brought forward by Councilor Campion. We would, you know, ask for a raise of hands there. The electrical upgrade at Fox Lake Park, more walking trail. Those are some of the things I've identified as we've gone through that we bring back and have a final discussion next week on. Furnace at the airport. Well, the one thing though I would say at the furnace at the airport is we are hoping to do that. What I've asked Brent to do is we have some money at the airport this year, in this year's budget. We haven't, knock on wood, spent much R&M money. And I said, maybe we can get that furnace done and include it in 2020's cost, then that frees up that cost in 2021. So we've just getting quotes from our local contractors on that now. And there's been a couple of things where I think the 2020 budget, unless things go sideways between now and the end of the year, I think we're gonna be sitting in a pretty decent position where we haven't had any major cost overruns. If anything, we've had cost savings in multiple areas throughout the budget. So I'm anticipating we're gonna have a surplus at the end of the year based on 2020's operations. And that's prior to having our COVID $264,000 money given to us. In my mind, that's a bonus to us as we move forward. That money that's been given to us. We adjusted as a municipality, and we're able to deal with the effects of COVID and move through without any serious implications. Like I said, a lot of facilities we closed saved us money having them closed, unfortunately. So I think we're in a decent shape. And that's kind of how I think, you know, I'd like to approach it, Deputy Mayor Jensen.
Yeah, that works.
Like, I think you guys have had an
I just know we
opportunity.
were mulling, so I didn't know if
Yeah.
we should just like do a show of hands now and get.
You guys had an
out of the way.
opportunity to, I guess, for lack of better words, throw your thoughts and ideas out on the table. I think as council members, you now have, you know, go home for a week and think about some of the comments that were made, some of the ideas that were proposed, and you know, maybe get a little bit of a more time to think about it. But I think it's great, and I'm hoping everybody can be here next week. And then I think we put these items back on the table and say to council, is the half-ton truck in or out? Is the screener in and out? Is the electrical upgrade in and out? Like those things, be able to make those decisions. That will drive us to our goal of zero. But we all acknowledge here that the goal is to get to zero tax increase. So I don't think that'll be an issue. I don't think that'll be hard. But yeah, and that could be an option. It doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt to go into 2021 with, you know, the only thing that from the naysayer side, if you have a surplus, they might say, well, you're taxing me too much because you've got a surplus. It's nice to have that contingency there in case something does go a little sideways, that you've got a little bit of dollars there, but that again will be a decision of council to make, so.
Well, we did that last year. We had a,
We had a small
we had
surplus.
a surplus to it. And
Yeah.
what was left at the end of the year?
Well, we're not at the end of the year,
No,
but
but yeah.
I think you
Are we
know,
gonna make it with,
oh, I believe so.
will that surplus still be available at the end?
I
of the year?
believe so, yeah.
And what was it, do you remember?
I think when we started, it was $20,000.
28,000, wasn't
20,000.
20, I
it?
think.
20.
It wasn't, it wasn't large.
20,700.
If it was 80 or 88, I would have probably said to you, and council probably would have said, well, geez, we could lower taxes by 1% or 2% and still leave us with a little bit of a surplus contingency, so.
Oh, well, you can leave the council wages the same. Sorry there.
Did you have anything else, Councilor Stickle?
No, I better keep quiet.
Hey, Councilor Ronan?
There's one thing that I checked with Eileen Clow regarding the weather station. We haven't discussed that at all in the last little bit.
The clinic hasn't, correct?
Right.
When you say, yeah.
And what I got from Eileen this morning was that through the minutes that STARS was not supportive of it. And last we discussed, it was October 11th of 2019. And they have no funding and STARS does not give support or has not
Okay.
given support for that. So I don't know then if that is going to be pursued or.
Well, at this point in time, the weather station is funded. The only contribution the town has to the weather station is an allocation of MSI. So we don't have any general tax revenue or anything. So if the weather station project was removed, that would simply mean we would have $50,000 more available to us in our MSI allocation. That could go towards future projects.
Okay.
But yeah, it was a push from a local resident. And to make it palatable, in terms of financially, the thought was, well, maybe the clinic could apply for funding because they're a not-for-profit. They could apply for a CFEP grant or something.
Yeah.
And if they could get 100 of it, then it made it more palatable for the municipalities to throw in the other 25% each. Because a lot of people will look at it as a bonus for the pilots. Only 10 or 12 people fly a plane out of here, so we're only affecting those 10 or 12
And it's
people.
a pretty big investment on their side to make use of that equipment too.
And the other thing that's happened, but I think the other thing, and everyone's a little leery about, is nobody wants to jump out and say STARS was not able to land 5% of the time, or whatever that number is. And I know that's where it became important to that individual, was he was in a life and death situation, and STARS could not get out here and almost lost someone in his family. And that certainly drove him to say, that's not acceptable, that our community didn't have the equipment to be able to allow them to fly. Even with the weather station, that doesn't mean they're gonna be able to be here 100% of the time either. It just gives them direction where they're going, I don't think it's safe to fly, I'm not gonna fly. If there's a weather station, they can look and say, okay, cloud cover is this is this. Yes, we can fly, or no, we can't fly, versus a kind of a gut feeling that maybe they shouldn't be out in it. So if it does come off, and it certainly can, we've left it on the table all along, just in case something did happen from the partners. But I don't think it's a priority with the partners either, so.
That's all I wanted.
So that's something that we could remove too. And I guess if we remove it out of our budget and the partners do come back to the table to say, we're interested, we want to move this forward, then that's a discussion at that time with council of that day to say, okay, the project is back on. Are you comfortable with allocating dollars to that project? So,
We can always take it out of reserve, right?
yep,
If we had to.
if you had to, yeah.
Yeah, I think, I agree with that, pull that off of there.
Has there been any increase in, this might be trivial, in the cemetery fees as well as dog licensing?
We haven't changed those, fees. We did look at cemetery and it's a bit of a mixed bag. There are some areas where we're kind of on par with where everybody else is. There's a few areas where we could probably increase, but if we did look at those rates, again, it would be, you on the cemetery, you might be able to bring in another $2,000 a year. And with dogs, probably even less, like we're at $15. If you bump that to 20, you're gonna get $5 more a tag, so on.
Yeah.
You might be able to bring in another $500. Yeah,
Just a question.
but it's not a bad idea though to
I think as far as. the
continue to
dogs,
look at that and increase, if you need to, if you're getting behind where others are, so.
And that was
Okay.
one small comment. I do agree with a zero pay freeze across the board.
So I just want to clarify to you, Counselor, Board, what that means to you. So when you say zero across the board, does that mean grid steps, grid changes?
Everybody
So that's,
across the board.
so you're including, so when you say zero in your mind, that's no grid steps, no grid changes, those are,
Well, the ones that you're looking at replacing retiring staff is going to be put into a new position, so they don't need an increase because they're already getting an increase
Right.
with the change, right?
but I just want to make sure we're all on the same page that in Councillor Bowden's mind, zero means no grid steps, no adjustments there versus COLA. COLA is a 1%
Yeah, no, I know
that would go on
difference.
everybody's.
Yeah, haven't got there yet.
Okay,
What I would like to see then is I would like to see the 1% COLA. I would like to see.
so you,
Nope. Okay, sorry.
I just want to, so you would like to see 1%?
If there is a zero, if there's a freeze across the board, then I would like to see a 1% COLA.
Okay, so I'm just trying to make sure I'm on the same
Cost of
page.
living allowance, yeah.
So then I interpret that as saying the no grid steps for anybody, no grid changes, but then overall adjusting the grid by 1%. Are we on the same page? Okay, okay, if it's,
1% cost of living
okay,
allowance.
because there are kind of, in my mind, they're separate.
Yeah,
So,
COLA and a pay increase
Yeah.
are separate.
okay, okay,
Is my understanding. I would like to see and ensure that any sick time that anybody has due to COVID is covered. And that if they've taken sick time out because of COVID, that sick time be re-allotted for them for personal reasons or whatever. Is that confusing?
no, it's not confusing. We've been, again, it goes back to our staff being responsible with their sick days.
Yeah, but
We-
they shouldn't have to take, if they're 14 days having to isolate and they use all their sick time for isolating, then I think they should also be allotted X number of time for if they are sick for, or have to use their sick time for a dentist appointment or whatever.
Is there any policy in place for that? Like, I know we had this discussion in detail with the library staff. And we just did a one-time pay out. It wouldn't affect sick time, it wouldn't affect it, it's a one-time, if you have to isolate for that and get your testing for one time, we will pay your 14 days, well, 10 to 14 days, whatever is your recommendation, isolation pay, which doesn't impact anything else. And beyond that, then, because you could start to run into, and I'm not saying that any staff would, but
But if
and
they have
every
a health
couple
issue,
months,
yeah.
somebody would have to go for testing, and if they keep getting their sick time reallotted, well, shit, why not, right? But I'm just,
Or they
I
go
might
shopping
be worth,
or to auditors one thing.
And we have that
Investigating,
little
kind of a
Yeah, some
policy,
sort of compensation so
something
that-
for like a one-time or something.
That very subject that you're talking about, people just continually go for the 14 days. 14 days. Pretty easy to go get tested.
Well, the trouble, I certainly appreciate as an employee, and I appreciate from the employee side that I think that's very generous.
Well, CAO doesn't get this.
But when we look at it, knock on wood to date, we haven't run into a situation where it's caused an issue. So we've had some people isolate, but they've had enough sick time in their accumulation, because we can accumulate up to 36 days. So we can accumulate 12 a year, up to 36, and then we're capped at 36. And so a lot of our staff have been able to build their sick bank up over the year and have been able to take time off. We've probably only had a handful of people who, and there's a difference between, some of our staff can go home and isolate and still work. And that is always the expectation.
We still get paid.
It's guys, it's primarily our outside group. So our Parks and Rec guys and our Public Works guys, if they have to isolate and stay home, they really can't do any work from home. Or what they can do is very limited. They have to be hands-on there. So my premise would be moving forward, I would like to deal with that. If we find ourselves in that type of situation, then I think we come back to council and say, look, we have a staff person who has had to quarantine twice this year and lost 20 of their sick days. They have to quarantine a third time, they don't have enough sick days. How do we want to approach it then? So,
And that's what I'm trying to get,
Like,
is have some use.
and deal with it kind of that way. I appreciate the sentiment. I think, knock on wood, we've been fortunate and we've got by, and nobody on our staff has been asked to quarantine or isolate and not got paid. We've been made sure they got that paid. But if I'll use me as an example. The week I stayed home, I was quarantining, but it didn't render me not able to work. I wasn't sick. Different story, knock on wood, we haven't had any staff members contact COVID. That would be certainly a different situation. And if we had staff members that contacted COVID, they may not be able to be home and working, depending on how severe their symptoms are. So I appreciate that, but I think at this point, if we leave it, play it by ear, and certainly it's situational. If we run into a situation that causes it, certainly we bring it back.
The travel subsistence for all the areas, the money was spent to invest into Zoom. And so I'd rather not see any of that travel accounted for, except where it's absolutely necessary or whatever. How much does it cost to hold a Zoom meeting?
We pay a monthly subscription fee, which gives us, we can either buy one license or three, so we have three, which is the minimum we can go. It's still an inconvenience to only have three, so, yeah, it's just a monthly fee.
And I do believe, Councillor Bowden, that Zoom options will become prevalent now. I do think that will happen, but I will leave it. And if we have money if in-person meetings are opened up, then I think it will be the decision of the member if they want to be face-to-face or they would prefer to do a Zoom. I don't think Zoom's going away. Not at least in 21. And I don't know, like I said, we've got them back to pre-COVID levels. But, and I know if we look at council, that means primarily a big chunk of that is AUMA We'll have a new council at that time, whether they want to go to AUMA or not would be their decision. So if we don't have any money in, we've taken that decision on our hands. So I do agree, as Deputy Mayor Jensen said, we've got it at pre-COVID levels. Certainly that can change as we move forward, and if it does, it does. Certainly we'll know better at spring budget time, whether we're gonna be, where COVID is at and how it's impacting us, and that'll be across the board. The only conference that I'm aware that has been adjusted as of this point in time is the Alberta Water Wastewater Operators Conference has been made, the decision has been made already to go to virtual. So we pulled that money out of common services area for that, so, or water for that, so.
I also, as far as the upgrades for the council chamber, we don't really know if we're gonna be able to get back into council.
No, and
To what
it's,
level, and
The
so,
solution that I'm investigating would be something that would work, would be a mobile. I'm looking at a couple of different options, but it would set up and work for the community center and then be able to take it back to council.
okay, so it's not just council chambers, and it's
Yeah.
the
My
ability to
intent
do
is to get, as good a use out of it as we can, but it's something not fixed.
Okay, that sounds fine. I agree with the no Japanese exchange program. I doubt that, that will happen.
yeah, I don't even know if it'll be an option,
Um,
even if we wanted to, so.
let me see here. And I agree not to replace the truck or the mower. With proper maintenance and everything, I think we should be able to utilize what we have, and for the amount of mileage that is on the truck. You know, if it's around town and everything, it really is not really a whole lot of extra miles that are gonna be added onto it for this upcoming year, so I think we should just stay with the existing vehicle and look at extending the time frame that they're switched out. Communities in Bloom, I agree. I am wondering whether or not it is going to be worthwhile or not.
Okay, and the mayor had suggested that as well.
Yeah. And again, I agree with the operating, with the spray park as far as waiting to see once it's in operation as to where funds are going to be needed and it may be changed. The fitness center, as far as purchasing more equipment, I don't agree with that.
So that transfer isn't for purchasing new equipment this year.
But there was some indication about purchasing more equipment for the fitness center.
In future years. The amount that's in the budget right now is to transfer into reserve, so we have the money to buy equipment when we need to buy
Okay.
equipment.
Okay, that's
So it's not, there's no definite plans. We've been transferring that amount, and then I think it was in 2019, last year, it wasn't 2019, we bought a bunch of new equipment and used that reserve. So now we're starting almost from scratch to build back up to be able to replace equipment in the future. It was just an idea.
It's part of the agreement with the fitness association.
Yeah.
And they turned the fitness center over to the town for operating.
We just didn't want to be in a position that every year we have to, or we go 0, 0, 0, 0, and then we need to replace 4 pieces of equipment and it's $20,000 and it's a hit to the budget. So we tried to set some money up annually so that when those replacements need, we have the money available to us. That's, in a perfect world, how we'd like to do it with everything.
nice to have reserve.
Yeah.
I think that's all I have.
Okay. I guess there was just the one thing that we had really touched on the mayor's points with consideration of contribution to reserves for Helmer Dam to act on recommendations in the future. Any thoughts on that? I don't know. I personally wouldn't mind seeing 35,000 thrown aside over the course of a few years. That puts us at about to 100,000, at least we have something to move on recommendations. Like to see something happen there some point in time somehow. So if we don't start putting some money aside, nothing will ever happen, even if we have recommendations.
Well, it makes it harder at that point in time when and if you get some recommendations and you are said, well, if we do this and spend this much money, we can move forward in this direction. And then you go, well, geez, yeah, I'd like to do that, but we don't have $100,000. Again, so it's nice. So again, we can certainly put that on the list for next week. And I think that will all, float around basically how much of the other stuff we eliminate. And I think next week it'll be a bit of a multiple, we'll be saying, okay, if we take this out, that drops us here. If we add this in, it'll bring us here, and we'll keep a balance as we move along to where we get to. But that's certainly an add to the budget, but if it's a priority of council, certainly that's something that can be addressed.
I support that as well. If we've done the initial
Study.
research, stopping it right now does not solve the problem, and I think it would be a good addition to the community. So I agree with putting some money aside for reserve for it. Sorry, and I also had another question. We haven't accounted for tax money that will be coming in from the sale of the tax.
Well, Councillor Bowen, that's accounted on an annual basis. So when we have our tax revenue that says we're gonna generate $2.8 million, it just means those years we're not generating it. Our books say that it is because it shows, it's like an accounts receivable. We bill it, it's shown as revenue. If they haven't paid it, it just means we're short that cash. So it's been accounted for.
It's not revenue,
It's been
it's
accounted for in this
yeah.
document. It just, cash flow will be better once those tax penalties are paid, and that revenue's collected. It certainly will help cash flow.
Anything else?
Is there anything anybody needs between now and next week? Let me know if you have any questions or want some information or want some numbers or whatever. If not, our vision would be to come back and, identify these items that were discussed today, and then council can make the decision next week to say, this is out, this is out, this is out, this is in, and vote on it, if that's okay with council. You could do it today if you wanted to. I struggle sometimes when we don't have everybody here. If today was the day we needed to have it done, yes. Council has the ability to do that, but.
And thank you very much for providing this information.
Oh, no, we have that information there. It was just a matter of, we changed it to take out serial numbers and different things like that aren't applicable, but we need to provide that information to our insurance company to get this stuff insured. So.
That's another thing, does the town have the opportunity to apply for a reduction in insurance because they're not traveling as much? My insurance company had asked me about that. Is that something that?
I don't believe that that's a factor in our insurance, Councillor Bowden, because typically as a municipality, we're not traveling much anyway. It's for if the equipment gets damaged, if the buildings get damaged, and a big chunk of it is comprehensive liability if somebody gets hurt. And one of our facilities that insurance is there. But yeah, I don't think they base any of ours on how much we're out of town traveling, because really as a municipality, our travel is quite limited, so.
I see, pardon me, Director Mole walking around here. Is through, we can just kind of joke with them and tell them that 375 councils decided to forego that. We don't have anything to do with it. Just to see that.
Why don't, why play around with them? Why don't we just say that and have it be true?
Okay, I'm joking, you're not.
Sure, Counselor Stickler.
Yeah, just to see the reaction on his face.
And just so you know, what this budget does is just allocates MSI. So there's no decision that we're buying or moving forward. We'll certainly play that by year with our partner and see where they're at and when they're gonna be able to contribute. We've been fortunate, the last two pieces of fire equipment that we got a grant for one that paid for the full amount. It was $350,000, and we got another $350,000 grant that paid for our last major purchase was $500,000. So we got the fire truck for $75,000 was our share of it. So right now, grants are far and few between, so that's not available. So, and this is the most expensive unit you can buy. So that's the challenge. That's a big chunk of change for a unit, right? So yeah, certainly feel free, Councillor Stickle. I'd like to see his reaction too. So.
He may be watching in the other room.
He might be watching on YouTube right now, so the joke might not go very far.
So if there's nothing further, I guess we can call this meeting adjourned at 10:33. 10:30 if you want to